Hello, everyone, and welcome to the West Virginia Author Show. I'm your host, Kat Pleska. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Our guest couldn't be in the studio today, so she is joining us virtually, and you'll see her in just a moment. But I would like for everyone to please welcome poet, author, Mary B. Moore. So, welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Kat.
Well, I'm delighted to have you here, even remotely today. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's cold out anyway, so it's just as well you're in there and warm in your home. So I always begin by asking our guests where they're from, which is a typical question that we get here in West Virginia and Appalachia. So tell us something about your background, where you're from originally, and how did you arrive in West Virginia?
Well, Kat, I'm a native Californian, and I came to Huntington for a tenure-track job at Marshall University. Um, my academic field is Renaissance literature, so I had the great, really joyous opportunity to teach Shakespeare at Marshall. And I was always, though, a poet, and I wrote poetry the whole time I was at Marshall. And I retired in 2014 and have continued to write during retirement.
Yes, you have, and you're very prolific in your writing with all kinds of wonderful books that you have published of your poetry. And so you taught Renaissance literature and you taught Shakespeare, which is a wonderful background for a poet to be involved in. Did you, or have you ever taught poetry anywhere?
Yeah, I taught poetry at Marshall, and I taught creative writing at the Sacramento Poetry Center, which was it still exists. It's a community-based poetry center that's over 50 years old.
Oh, wow.
And we had some writing classes there years ago. And that was my first experience teaching creative writing. I was only able to teach a couple of classes of creative writing at Marshall because we had plenty of poets.
Oh, I understand. So, give us two pieces of advice that you gave to your students to help them improve their poetry.
Well, you won't be surprised, having read my poetry, that I have told them that they should get to know plants, animals, birds, trees. They should get to know the world, the names of the creatures and objects, including rocks, mountains, that they live among.
Mm-hmm. So it was to understand nature, basically, that what's around them, especially here in West Virginia.
And especially the names of natural things. Mm. Because, of course, in poetry, it's about words and names.
Yes.
And so knowing the names of plants, animals, rocks is a great thing for a poet. All the way back in the Renaissance, John Milton, in an essay, advised writers the same thing, to look around them at the natural world and learn its names.
Okay, that sounds lovely. I would love that, absolutely. So I'm sure you've got favorite poets, especially early on in your life. Who were these poets and what did they write, and why did what they wrote appeal to you?
Good question. Well, first of all, Pat, my mother read poetry to me, but she mostly read poetry that would be in books called Victorian verse. So I heard a lot of Rudyard Kipling when I was growing up. When I went to college, uh, I became interested right away in the Renaissance poets, in John Donne, George Herbert, and of course Shakespeare. Uh, Also in college, I became interested in the modernist poets, people like T.S. Eliot, Wallace Stevens, particularly Stevens. I have a little bit of a philosophical bent, and Stevens appealed to that. I also loved Emily Dickinson from the start, and I wrote my master's thesis on Dickinson.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, what do you try when you write your poems? What do you feel that you try to accomplish?
Um, well, my answer to questions like this about intent probably always seems inadequate to people because unless I'm writing a series of poems, Kat, that have a kind of thematic motif, like the Amanda poems did and do, but unless I'm writing something like that, I just write by describing what's around me, or I sometimes will pick up from an interesting word or a phrase that I've heard or read and just take off from that. So I write a lot of junk. and but what happens is if you write frequently like that with little intention, you discover surprising things in your own words. And those surprising things are what I value and what lead on to a poem that I'm interested in working in on.
Okay, I see. So, what is your work process? You've been retired for 10 years now. That's not to say you don't have a busy life, but what kind of work atmosphere do you have around you? Do you mostly work at home? Do you go out anywhere to write? What's your process of writing?
So pretty much every day I get up, have breakfast, have my coffee. Coffee is essential.
Absolutely.
And I go up to my study, which is, I'm very fortunate to live in one of these two-story brick older homes in the west end of Huntington. And I have a study that has windows on three sides. It's on the back of the house. I guess it must have been a sunroom or something like that. And I go there with my coffee, and I usually start by looking at drafts that I have in my computer, and I start revising those. And I do as much as I can, as much as feels fruitful. And then I might try generating a new poem, as I say, from what I see or what I hear, or mostly from something concrete, Kat, like a thing I see or a phrase I hear.
And when you see that visual or that you hear that phrase, that kind of launches you into a reverie or a deep
Yeah,
thinking about that subject.
exactly. It's a written reverie. I free write basically, Kat, until I come to something that interests me.
Okay, well, say how many hours a day might you invest in creating your poetry?
Well, counting the revision time, I would say it's easily 4 hours a day. Sometimes if something gets going that's really intriguing, it's more like 5 or 6. If it's not as intriguing, it's more like 2 or 3.
Ah, let's see. Well, and revision takes as long as, if not longer, than the original creative thought. And it's as important, but different skills are used, I think.
I agree totally. Revision in poetry is everything.
Yes. Yes.
That's where you still are discovering. I guess I would say, sidebar, a key word for me is discovery and surprise. I like to be surprised by my own language.
Oh, yeah, surprised. And one of the things that I love, especially about recognizing nature and that outside, is that ability to be in awe of what
Yes.
is around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonder. I love wonder.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about your most recent book of poems, which is your 6th book, which is fabulous. And I know you're an award-winning poet, as well as being well-published. Poems all through the literary world and in magazines. And but first, I want to talk about the cover of your most recent book, Amanda Chimera. And is it Chimera or Chimera?
It's chimera.
Chi.
It's based on a Greek word, and the Greeks say ch is chi.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about that gorgeous cover that's the front of your book. Now, book covers are really crucial for authors because that helps convey some element of what's inside the book. So tell us about how did this art for that book come about?
Well, this art totally came organically from the publisher at Madville Publisher. Madville is the press that published Amanda, and the publisher at that press is Kim Davis, and she sometimes designs book covers. So she started reading Amanda Chimera, and she came up with this design from some digital sources, and it perfectly represents the central concept of Amanda Chimera, which is that a woman essentially has an internal character with her, and that character is called Gloria. Amanda is the main character, and Gloria is her vanished twin. A vanished twin is an actual biological phenomena. It occurs when there are twins in utero, and one of them dies in utero, and the DNA of that dead twin is somehow absorbed by the viable twin. And so the viable twin, in this case Amanda, is born with 2 DNA patterns. And she discovers this when she has a DNA test. And in her case, of course, biologically, the vanished twin does not talk to the viable twin. But in the fiction of Amanda and Gloria, Gloria has a voice and is kind of irritating sometimes. And Amanda has to deal with this internal voice. Readers have compared Gloria to a ghost.
Oh,
Or have said Amanda is haunted by Gloria.
I see. Interesting.
Another aspect of their relationship is carried in the word chimera.
Right.
A chimera I mean, I think I grew up thinking a chimera is a specific thing, like a person with one green and one blue eye.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, yeah. But a chimera is by definition, is a creature that has two um, animal species mixed in with them. So, like a centaur
Right.
would be an example of a chimera. Amanda thinks she is a chimera because she carries Gloria's DNA. So she thinks she is a hybrid, the same way a centaur or the Sphinx is a hybrid.
Okay, that's a good explanation, Mary. Did I know someone personally who was pregnant with twins and one vanished?
Oh,
Did you know someone personally that had that happen?
no, no, I didn't. But I strongly identified with it, I think because I am an only child and I was quite lonely. And I think I longed for a sister. Um, Literally, the way I really stumbled onto it, one of those discoveries, I had the character or persona Amanda way back in 2015. I was writing poems spoken by Amanda. And and in late 2015 or 2016, I stumbled onto the idea of the vanished twin. And suddenly I thought, Amanda has a vanished twin.
Okay, interesting, interesting, because you did write about Amanda before. Was it Amanda and the Man Soul? Do I have that book
Yes,
correct?
that's a chapbook.
Okay, chapbook.
Yeah. Um, for people who don't know, poets can publish two two lengths of books. And one is a shorter length, and it's usually less than 40 pages, and it's called a chapbook. And then a longer book, which is usually more than 40 pages, commonly like 60 to 80, would be a typical size of a full length poetry book. And often poets absorb poems from chapbooks in a full length collection. And the original chapbook, Amanda and the Man's Soul, was published by a very small press. I think there might have been 100 or less printed. And it went out of print in about 2018. And so I always had in mind creating a full-length book of using those poems and others. And so I continued to write Amanda and Gloria poems. And I also ran into various other hybrids, that is, other examples of creatures, animals that were hybrids, and I wrote about them too.
Okay. All right. So let's get right to Amanda Chimera. So will you read a couple of poems for us from that book?
Okay. The first one is kind of long, but it's the one that shows the emotional tenor for Amanda of her situation with Gloria, and it's the title poem, Amanda Chimera.
Okay.
It has parts. I always have to laugh when I read numbered parts of poems because one of my best friends, who I suspect you know, S. Diane Wellman,
Yes.
has always made fun of the way poets read the numbers when they're reading. So, like, they go, one, very solemn, one. Amanda Chimera, one. We rode lightless the salt and soothe of Amnios. Two, the egg-bellied mother bore yoked twins. We somersaulted, bobbed and rocked when the world walked. Pink seahorses, eaters and swimmers, footless dancers, buds for limbs. Two. You died the Tuesday mother never knew you, drowned in the sea of mother may I be. Devolved cells and helices fluid, you eeled your way into me. Eye, bud, ear hole, heart's left chamber. I, your shroud and skin. 3. You weren't born, but I bear you. Lonely, only girl looking for kin. I had Jean Sears read me, and hello, they found you. Lost twin who spirals inside, me and not me. A star's arm, one-winged bird, soul spherule of pollen. You're iffy as suppose. A comma, a single parent, half an iota. We're gnomic, a riddle. When is 1, 2, 2, 1? Which is you when we're both also me? 4. You might have pitched a mean curveball, long-legged runner sprinting the grade school bases, sliding home a Hail Mary hit. Or we'd have lain face up on summer lawns, finding heroes and animals the night sky starred, imagining our own, the two sisters, the lyre, the swan are swaying. You might have played piano while I keyed the Mac, our secret language a libretto, musical as Italian. All the words end in ah or oh or ah, the unworded sounds of pleasure or loss. Or we might be antonyms, dissonance. 6. They tell me you'd have been winged or hooved, two-hearted, one-eyed, a mooncalf. I'm a chimera, a zoov too, anyway. My first lost half. You haunt me like Plato's myth of Eros. He dreamed the envious gods halved the first humans, perfect spherical pearls or moons to control their unruly powers. We still yearn for our lost halves, lean toward each other across the abyss, the difference. 6. You lived only the womb dream, wisp of a wish, fiction, who slipped under my skin, alien yet familiar, an incarnation I also am, sister, demon, twin.
Wow. That was mesmerizing, Mary. It was just absolutely lovely, lovely. We've got just a little bit of time left, about 3 minutes. Do you have a very short poem you could read?
I do.
Okay.
And this one has to do with the Appalachian landscape.
Okay.
To the ghost of humid nights. You're so light, Sister Birdfoot. You guss and whistle uphill, and down the side I can't quite see, where the hollow resurrects mist. Days the woods gather it, the warm and humid nights set it loose. Gray blue pearls a girl might wear or be, sway and drape, slow dance the ridges have mothered. Sister who was, then wasn't, ghost story. I've imagined you haloed and pale like the drowned, or blooded, flush with energy, riding air and the wood's luscious scents, oak bark, humus, pine. Do you know who whistled up the musk and gristle we are? You've licked the light off Four Pole Creek. If not flesh and bone, gust in the mist, earth is your mouth.
Wow. That's lovely. Lovely.
Oh,
Absolutely
thank you.
lovely. Mary, I've just so enjoyed hearing you read. So, just a couple minutes left here. So, tell me, what are you working on next? Or now, let's say.
Well, I have another manuscript that's circulating,
Ah,
and it, like Amanda, is kind of a project book. It's called The Aromancer. Aromancy is an ancient art of reading omens from things in the sky,
oh,
particularly cloud formations,
oh,
bird flights, and lightning.
oh, wow.
And it was discovered by the Romans from the Etruscans, which is an earlier race populating the area in Italy around Umbria and related areas. And I ran into not the idea of aromancy itself, but Etruscan sites, because I stayed with a writing conference in a place in Umbria. And that's how I got interested in the Etruscans and read about them. And since I write in that three-sided windowed room upstairs, I see a lot of clouds, and I'm obsessed with them.
Yes.
So I used my obsession to begin writing about clouds, and I learned about a little bit about aromancy. And so that collection is held together by the aromancy poems.
Fascinating. Fascinating, Mary. It's been, and I'm sorry we're out of time and we can't hear more about aromancy, but it's been lovely having you here with us, and thank you so much. I appreciate it. And everybody, that's West Virginia Author Show. I'm your host, Kat Pleska. Please join us next time, and thank you.